Glad to have you back. We did our administrative of who's here today. As somebody comes in, we'll put their name down. Turn to Unit 9 in your manual, if you would. I did not run yeah, I can get a copy up on the screen in a minute.
You said Unit 9?
Yeah. This is not the one. Down in section 9, you have a summary of a final class. I'm going to do this as we go along to make sure you see what you need to do. So if you can't find it, I'll read it to you. Does that sound good, Norm? Yeah. Okay, let me read the first one to you. There's 5 questions that they thought was very vital. When a disaster occurs, a CERT member, first responsibility is to A, join the CERT in a disaster response effort. B, somebody making a comment?
I think somebody joined us.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. Let me check here. Benjamin, welcome. Unmute your mic if you want to, unless you have a lot of noise behind you.
Yeah, I'll probably leave it muted. I'm actually at work and patrolling the roads, but I just wanted to listen in. So
That's quite all right. I hope we give you enough information. And I'm free for you guys to call me or email me back with questions. I'm just now catching up on all I got from the last week. We're going over the exam questions in Unit 1, that it's in part of Unit 9 is where the questions are found in your manual. Mine is better than your manual because I have the highlighted answer on it. So here we go again. When a disaster occurs, a CERT member's first responsibility is to join the CERT in disaster response efforts, help professional responders, ensure personal and family safety, do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Would anybody like to say, is it A, B, or C?
It is the make sure your family and yourself are intact first.
That is correct. You notice what they put in there? They talked about joining a response. That's secondary. Help a professional responder. In a real bad case, there won't be any professional responders. And do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Those are all good statements, but C is the one that's you do first. Your safety is always number one, and you take care of your family. So you may not show up at a disaster response if you have to take care of your family. Let's go to number 2. CERT members volunteer to fill non-disaster roles. An example of a non-disaster function is CERT is A, staffing parades, health fairs, and other special events. B, monitoring the news for potential disaster threats. C, petitioning local officials for more local emergency response funding. D, distributing political pamphlets and other materials. How about Jeff? Are you able to give me an answer?
I'm going to have to go with A, staffing parades, health
That's
fairs,
right.
and other
The
special
other
events.
3 are things we don't do probably
Mhm.
that I could think of. Okay, let's go.
Hey, Bill, I got a question. Is this for the preparation of the exams, or is this something after we've taken them, these classes? I'm not real clear.
Okay, let me go back and repeat that from last week. Number 1, starting January a year ago, we were trying to get U of U's computer program going and working. It ran into some glitches and they needed to update it because in December, they finally got around to updating the participant manual, and there was some difference from the previous ones. Number 2, as I said, U of U went down, And so we couldn't get things to working. So in a temporary mode, we were going to go to the ICS 317 class put on by FEMA that was online. It was about 6 to 8 hours, depending on how fast you could find the answers. But somewhere around March, April or May, somewhere in there, they stopped using that in about a 6 to 8 hour mode and went to the 1 to 2 hour mode, where it's just an introduction. We want you to come and be CERT trained. And it was more of an advertising, but it did give you some concepts. So if you did the 317 ICS that went 6 hours, I was going to have a little bit of a makeup in our final drill to take care of those people. There's just a little bit missing. But since they're through the second wrench in there, that we had to get you through U of U or through a live demonstration on Zoom. So it's going to be 2 parts, U of U or this Zoom presentation, or we're going to, that's the 2 choices with a hands-on class. And anybody's guess when we're going to do that. It may be September before we can get that arranged, because in the state of Utah and policemen don't do one-on-one contact with people unless it's really an emergency. So those things have to change. And I understand in May, we're supposed to no mask. Maybe. So we're estimating the hands-on to be in September at this moment. The U of U course, if you have any problems getting onto it or finding the answers, becomes sometimes they're very sneaky and they get things that are not really greatly important that they're doing. Whoever wrote that, they have some excellent videos in it. They have some presentation by a CERT group out of Virginia that's pretty good in there. And they have all these videos. But these videos may or may not apply, but they're great. I could sit and watch those all day. Then you can go to YouTube. That's where all these videos came from, was YouTube. So you can go through there and type in CERT and watch all of them you want to, because everybody's got a different take on how CERT should work. Last week, we went over the how one of the view foils, let me find it. Wrong way. This one went from 1 to 3. What I'm going to be orientating is what you do, this number 3. These are givens in the area that happened, how CERT works, but this is one preparing you for your potential kit is what I was focusing on. So a lot of these view foils, I really talk bottom up instead of top down, because it's more what you will do in a major emergency. If you're taking the U of U test, they do not have on this in the book a vest. Would you pull out a vest? No. Yeah. It's the yellow one right over there. It's sitting on the top. Yeah. Now, I knew too much I'm going to put this down for a minute. See me? Can you see me, guys? This is my CERT vest. Every kit comes with a CERT vest in it. We do not supply shoes to you in the kit from the city. This was the one that I had to take out of the answers. It was a multiple choice. You choose all the right ones. I kept choosing this cotton picking vest, and it took me a while to figure out why the vest wouldn't work. And I never checked those shoes. It took me a while to figure that one out. So I went back in the manual and I said, oops, there is no vest shown in this little picture, as I showed you earlier. And the text doesn't say that. But in reality, we don't supply the shoes you do, but they call that a sturdy shoes as equipment. And the vest is an option. And you notice there's a backpack there. That's an option. And can you grab me my helmet? Since someone didn't see it last week.
Hey, Bill, if you're You seem to be referring to something on your screen, but we can't see your screen.
Thank you. Anybody talk to me like that? I'm learning how to do this. Okay, this is the helmet. This helmet is good for 5 years according to the specifications. Mine was a 95, so it's a little bit overdue, but what I do every year is I inspect it because I found some that were built newer that have cracks in the brim. The color was changing. These are only made to be hit from the top. Somebody made a lawsuit that if they got hit from the side, they were suing because they got hurt. These helmets are only meant to be hit from the top. And that's what they'll protect you, is something dropping on the top of your head. And you need to check them frequently. And when you get your kit, we'll go through it and inspect them for you. But I want to make sure you inspect your kit. That's one of the things that's in your kit. And I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint for a minute and get my thought finished. So you will get not white ones, but blue ones.
Sorry, Bill. We still can't see your screen if you're trying to share your screen.
Oh, I'm looking at the PowerPoint. That should be up there, shouldn't it?
No, we can't see the PowerPoint. All we can see is your camera image.
Why can't you see the PowerPoint? Okay, it's on a different computer. Just a moment. Thank you for the technical difficulties, guys. Can you see me now?
All we can see is your camera. We can't see your screen.
Okay. I'm going to try to make it 2 of them here. Let me go to settings.
Should be just a little square that you click on that says share your screen.
Oh, thank you. I thought it was because I didn't have to. Go back to 1 then. Okay, thank you. I'm glad you guys are here to train me. I'm so helpful. Here's my share screen. Where's my PowerPoint on those? Can everybody see it now?
No.
We can still only see your camera, Bill.
I'm sorry, guys. I thought I was doing a great thing here, having a big screen to see where I could see things too from my laptop. I'll go over there. Okay, here we are. Rich, I'm clicking on 2 screens.
We can't see your screen yet, if that's what you're asking, just your camera still.
How do I put 2 screens on here, Rich? I'm on a window screen. Are you familiar with that?
Do you see the little square at the bottom, Bill, that says share screen? Down at the bottom, it should say share screen. On mine, it's green. I don't know about yours.
Did it once. Let me do it again. No, Tom,
Yeah,
I
there.
see it.
you see me?
Yeah, we can see your Zoom window.
I see my Zoom one.
And we can see your mouse.
Do what?
We can see your mouse moving. We can see your web browser.
Can you see that?
There
All
we go.
right.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. There's so many places to hit on this. Okay, let's go back to the beginning for unit 1, see if we can help you. Let's see, who was it talking last? Who asked the question that I was trying to answer? Was it Jeff or was it?
No, I think it was Tom. He was just asking if we were taking the test, that the test that we were looking at was going to be the actual one that we take, or if it's just an example.
It's the test you're not going to take. You're going to take it right now. And I'm trying to get to Unit 9. You need to print off your manual. And
Yeah, Bill, it was actually me at Shane. I was just wondering if, because I've taken the university exam and got through it. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be on here, if this is like a follow-up thing or preparation to take that, I guess is my question.
if you've taken the one from the U of U, that CERT class online,
Uh-huh.
that'll be equivalent to the textual one we're going over here.
Okay, because yeah, they sounded similar. So
They
I
are.
can probably bow out then, I guess.
Yes, you could. Or you could wait just a few minutes and see a few extra forms that they're not giving you.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so if you go back to the questions, you can see that there's Unit 9, and there's the green will tell you what the heading is. And these are the questions, and you can answer it since you took the U of U one. And there's section 2, section 1. It has overviews in there. And then when you get past that, there's some questions. Final review. Here's our questions. Number 3, let's get back to number 3. There are 5 types of disasters, that's plural. They are natural, terrorist, home fires, pandemics, and. Which ones is it? A, B, C, or D? No answer? Since you're looking at
I'll chime
mine,
in.
real close, it's D's highlighted. That was the things they wanted you to get out of it. And on which of the following is not a hazard associated with house fixtures? And if you look, a hazardous
Wait, what was the answer on 3, Bill?
D.
D, okay.
And then on 4, which of the following is not a hazard associated with home fixtures? It's not a gas line rupture, because that could happen. It could be, is it a hazardous material spill, or is it a injury or electrical shock? Could that happen at a home fixture? Fire from a faulty wiring. Which one of those do not look like they would work? Somebody give me a good answer quickly. Just guess on one and I'll correct you.
B.
B is the
I'd
answer.
say B.
B is the right one. That is not a hazard around the house. Unless you have, you don't have them in the proper container. That one I might have to accept all of them being none of the above, because you could have hazardous material around your house and you could spill it, but they're really meaning a large spill from a chemical company. I was in one of those once, and it was not fun to be closed up in a building. You pulled all the shop people into the administrative building. You turned off your air conditioning. You topped up. You taped all the places where it could leak air in, and you had to sit for 30, 40 minutes. And that's not comfortable. So that's what they were meaning. Something like an industrial spill. Number 5, one of the steps in preparing for a disaster is to develop a disaster supply kit, where you keep separate disaster supply kits. This is where should you keep separate disaster supply kits? Home and work, every room of your house, vehicle, home, work, and vehicle.
D.
Yep, D.
That's correct. Whoever said D, you're great. Okay, that's the things they wanted to. I just was going to go over them. Next week, I'll have to use a participant manual. So let me run this up to the top. And I'm going to give you a Bill's thumbs eye view of this, reviewing it. If you look in your manual, you will find what's your manual? No, let's see review. Look in your manual, you will see a lot of things you need to get together. And that you need to read and look at your pocketbook and do one item at a time. Basically, it's for you and your family. And then your kit will be supplied by the city when we do a hands-on. And let's go to the, talks about the community and their roles and responsibilities, just to keep it short. The community has an EOC, Emergency Operations Center, that will help in a major disaster. Otherwise, it's the police and the fire and the ambulances and city workers, that their normal routine of incidents that are occurring, they take care of that. When they start to get a little bit behind, they can call for backup or mutual aid from the next cities. And then they can go to county, and then they can go to the state, and then they can go to the federal government. And then it comes back to the state, which comes back to the counties now, then back to the city, and then back to you as an individual. I'll show you a summary of that in a little bit. So let's look at some of the operations real quick. So there, I'll just catch you other people up there. We're here. That's the government responsibilities. And you'll find it in your manual. Just read it. You passed the test for it already. And a lot of it you saw was not that important. It's nice to know, but not that important at this moment. These are the different agencies that you can get. Your manual should have it in it also, all these different places to get more information. I also work for the Red Cross, so I know what they do. As you can see, there's all these tools here: food items, kitchen items, disaster kit first aid that you could get, disaster kit tools, personal sanitation items, pet items. These are things that that FEMA thinks that everybody needs. So does the Red Cross. They all have the same similar list. Documentations. Be sure to get a lockbox that's fireproof for your hard copies. Take a photograph of that, or take a thumb drive and put your photographs on that. My son that was in the Hurricane Harvey, he's a police officer there. He had me take a tour of Houston. And as he's driving along, he says, "Dad, what do you see is different?" And I said, "A lot of junk at the yards from flooding and stuff like that." He says, "Look closer, Dad." And I said, "I don't see what you want me to look at. Show me, tell me." And he says, "Look at the car license plates. They were all brand new cars with the paper plates." And he says, this is only 2 weeks after the hurricane hit. Everything's taken care of. If you had a USB drive and a way to get it into a computer, you could go online to FEMA, and any benefits they had for you would come to you right away within a few hours. And that's why Congress kept having to enlarge the budget for FEMA through Hurricane Harvey in the one in Louisiana. What was that called? Started with a K, I think. Well, anyway, the one in Harvey, or the one in Louisiana, about 2 decades before, they took forever to get things done.
Katrina.
Katrina, thank you. And so they were months and years getting things paid off from FEMA. But now everything's electronically done. So if, for example, we had a major incident here and we needed to call FEMA in from other states, the Red Cross, for example, takes 4 days to get here. They have at airports all their emergency gear to come into the area. It will be in the air and people will be here within 4 days to set up the equipment. It's electronics to sheltering, feed, etc. And I'm trained to do that, and it takes 4 days for us to get there. So we have to have that 72-hour kit, by the way, for till that 75th hour. We hope somebody's landed and is unlocking those packages from the federal government. That's what I wanted to say. Let's see. You need an evacuation plan. Here's just a sample. Read your manual and it'll give you good ideas. We are newer houses out here. We're within 20 years. So maybe we've had to replace our dishwashers, maybe our smoke detector, maybe our microwave, but we have the newer ordinances, so we will have less problems than anybody else around us in older areas. If you were downtown Salt Lake or over in Provo or in old parts of Lehigh, you would have a lot of equipment that we don't use today, and we have better equipment. So you got to decide, since we got these new houses, to shelter in place or to go to mass care, the community shelter. Most of the LDS buildings, if they're standing, would be open. And I don't know which to tell you to do, because I'm planning on to shelter in place unless it's my property is destroyed. So have the plans. And remember, when you're packing that 72-hour bag to go to a shelter, that's a shelter bag. That's a refugee bag. It's not a bailout bag to get you out of the country. You're just going to a shelter, and you would rather go visit a friend or a family member that's out of the area. Here's another point we need to bring up. This is a weak ICS formula here, or chart. Government agency liaison. That's coming from the viewpoint of FEMA. Then you're going to throw a team leader in here instead of a incident commander. And they show us 4 out of the 5 different areas. We don't use this last one in CERT. And we're not, usually the ICS is held by the fire chief that's in the area taking care of a disaster. So they stuck team leader in here instead of chief, but yet they kept operational sections. They made them chief. So if you get an assignment to be the operational section leader, you're promoted to a chief. Does that sound good, Norm? As a retired fireman? Bureaucratically, okay. Very good. So they just put chiefs in there. This is orientated to be firefighter. The thing they do show you here is the 3 types of groups, and somewhere they're going to ask a question: how many groups how many teams do you need? And they don't say operational area. They just ask for 3. How many is the minimum team? Well, they're going to have in the operations these 3 groups, and they may be 2 people in each of those groups. And the number 3 refers to how you handle things. If you were a Boy Scout and they told you to find 8 bodies and make a patrol, one of them would be the patrol leader. Well, if you didn't have 8 boys, if you just had 9 boys and you're going to break it into 2 patrols, the smallest patrol would be 4. You have a leader for that patrol, or you could have an assistant patrol leader take care of the other 4 boys. So it's 3 to 7 people reporting to any one person. But the buddy system could be 2 people in these different areas. Okay. If I'm setting it up, I'm going to give you a little bit more down here. Here's where they come up with that question: helmet, goggles, N95 mask, gloves, and sturdy shoes or boots. But they don't mention the vest. But at night, you really want that vest. You want the vest to let everybody know you're in charge. So let's go on down. Some of the jobs you can do, you can read them, and you'll be trained on it. I'm going to go down here to where I inserted, I thought. I guess I didn't pick it up here. No, I didn't. I'll go with this one. Okay, here's our 5 commands, an incident command. If you're called out on emergency, Rich, if you called all of them up, you would have a where to go and what to do. And it probably would not be in our city unless we were in a major fire or a flood or a mudslide, or I don't know that we'll get an avalanche here. We could get an earthquake, or we could get a tornado, and things would really be bad. Most of the time, the mutual aid between cities takes care of everything, and we do take care of the fairs and parades and handing out stuff. Here's the fire command structure. They call it incident command. The first one on the left is operations. Intelligence we don't do. We do planning and we do logistics. We don't do finance. How many people do we need? How many people do you have in your area, Rich?
You mean in the city, or what are you referring to?
In your neighborhood area there?
In my neighborhood area.
How many CERT people?
We've got a handful, Bill. It's gonna take me too long to come up with that answer.
Pick a number.
But between 5 and 10, between 5 and 15, maybe.
Okay, in mine, we've got 11, and we got about 12, 13 more coming back to be added to that. How many do you need? You need one here. If I was incident commander, right there is where I'd put myself. And then I would start delegating, and I would put somebody that take care of all these areas, a certain member to catch anybody from the press that wanted to know things, and they'd refer them to me. And I wouldn't have time for them, and that person would just be, please sit down and he'll get with you as soon as he can. First group I'd set up would be assigning somebody to be in operations. The next would be somebody in logistics. And then I would, as people would start coming, I would put them in operations. And the logistics takes care of your ham radio people and all your spontaneous people and all your spontaneous gear or tools or food or whatever you need, or buildings. That goes under logistics. Over here under the operations is where I'm getting into number 2 now. In operations, I wasn't 2, excuse me. You go to operations here, and if you look, operations does many different things. Now, if Rich and I took half of the 8 zones or that we have set up, or districts, we could take 4 each. Then we could handle them. And what I would do is I would have 4 groups here for local team leaders. And those team leaders would report to me, and I'd make sure they had everything they needed. But in a normal team down at the neighborhood level, you set up groups that are fire suppression, and you put a group leader above that, and your operations leader, he gets these 3 people just picked out. And then they take care of 3 as a minimum, up to 7 fire suppression teams or rescue teams or medical teams, and start to work on doing things. And then after he's done, you start building up your team for your logistics. Planning still stays with the incident command person or the troop leader. I'm still going back to Boy Scouts, excuse me, guys. Okay, so here's what they really want you to know. You've got a person that's TL. You can take your helmet, take a piece of tape on it and write TL on it. You can go to the person that's in charge of operation, take a piece of tape and put O on it for operations. Put P for planning and L for logistics, okay? Forget about the other ones. And there we go again. I'm just going to try to catch up here to get us back on schedule. We're going to take a 10-minute break in a few minutes here. Now, we've got forms. I sent you all a set of these forms. They were what LA has printed out. They're also in the back of your manual. In case you didn't know what they were, I sent them to you. So you had a copy. So what you're going to do is, I sent you an extra form. It's called an activity log form. When I would start off, I like this form because I'm the first on the scene and I'm doing things. What I would do is I would fill out name and address, and I'm first on the scene. I'm the team leader. If I don't feel I can handle it, I say, Rich, take over, or Tom, take over, you're leader. And then I would say, here, such and such time was first there. Second line, such and such time, turn it over to Tom. Third line, got assignment to do whatever. And that's what I would start doing. But sometimes you might have 10 or 15 things going, people reporting in, and you assigning them somewhere, and you can just date and time it and put a name and where you assign them real quick. I like this form. You can do a lot with it. That was 214. Let's put that down. What they do is they start off with, shows another, okay. They started off here with a damage and assessment form. Well, I found another one I liked. I stole this from, where did I put it? I don't have it open yet. I'll have to get it. It's a form. I'll find it and get it to you in a little bit. It's the form that has address on the left side or unit of if you're in an apartment. And so I went through and I put my neighborhood, every address on the neighborhood in there. And I put the street number and name, and if it was a multiple building, I put the unit it was in there. Didn't put a name down there. Don't need to do that. I put them all of them on the same street. I have a map. I have that list that's filled out. The funny thing is, in my area, I'd say all but 2 are on Kilkenny. And so as we're walking from the top part of Kilkenny, I'm up on the top of a hill. I walk down and my street's in a horseshoe, and we have another little horseshoe street in between it. As I'm walking down, I would note things, and as people would walk down, Kilkenny would be covered with addresses of the condition of the house, or people that needed help, or any special notes they could write on it. Get down to Mason's house, because we chose that. My house, there's 2 CERT and 2 ham radio people that we do both, but down there they've got 3. And so when we got down there, we've got half of one of our areas done just by walking down there. He's got himself as a ham radio operator. The wife is a ham radio operator and a nurse, retired. The mother-in-law, Rick's mother-in-law is a CERT person and a ham radio operator. So Rich, you know them as Rick and Melissa. And Ruby's the mother. So anyway, we meet there, and then we go down to Inverness, and some of us would go right, some of us go left. We'd go right to your place, Tom, and start working your area. Half us, the other half would go over where Norm lives. And that's how we work our things. But here's a damage assessment piece here. Well, you could take this damage assessment and look at that dashboard, as I called it, on it, and make a new listing here of all the things that you've highlighted on that street, whether it's in no harm to the building, light, medium, or damage real bad. You could talk about people on that form. So you could get this form filled out, but this is one thing you need to know. And this is form number 1. Number 2, personnel resources check-in form. When I would start a command, I would have a clipboard and give this to people to, and it's in my pack, by the way, a notebook with clipboard. And I just let them fill in, just like what you see here. Date and time, or time from it to, it's time in, time out, your name, your ID number if you have one. Ham radio out call sign works there. There's a phone number next and gives you 3 types of different areas you can be in. I can't read sideways very well. It's preferred assignment. You can check what you have the skills at. You may not prefer to do some things in CERT, but please let them know what you prefer to do and you have more skill set at. And then where you get, then you can get where you got signed to and what your team is in timeout. But then here's another form, assessment tracking log. This can be used if the incident commander is the only one there and he's got 4 or 5, or he's got 4 buddies. He can give them things to do and you can fill them in here and what the assignments are. And when he gets ready to give it over to the operation person, he gets this piece of paper here and gives it to the operation person. The operation person then knows who he's in charge of. And he can have more than 1 sheet. I recommend you have quite a few of these, at least 2 or 3 of the 214 that I sent you. This here is a briefing assignment. So if you're the chief, I like that, you're the chief, give you promotion. Is that a pay raise too in the fire department, Norm? I'm talking to Norm, who's sitting here with me. Norm was retired fire, if I didn't tell you. And he and I laughed about that being a chief. So you have date and time on all these records. Oh, by the way, you guys are worth $25 approximately an hour in money from FEMA to the city and to help the city pay for its damages. So that's why paperwork's very important. And you could go through here and all the different things you need to know about fires, hazards, structures, people. You can put numbers in there or check marks as it applies in your briefing and your plan. And then when you get a person, you have to get logistics to take care of all the spontaneous people that be coming. Then they can start, planning can start writing these for the operation people. And that's their form. So there's an A, B side on that form. Treatment area. Okay, if you're gonna set up a medical area, here's the minimum paperwork you need. Okay. Oh, here's that other form I was talking about. It was in a spreadsheet. This is a good summary. And as an incident commander, your people in planning can keep this updated for you so you could get a hold of the EOC or the next level up for the area that you're working. Okay, that's out of there. Next form is communication log. Rich, myself, anybody else out there a ham operator? Okay. This is something the ham operator could keep. If you're handing out messages that are only paper copies, this is a good form to have. Another form is a little bit later. Let's go down to that form. This is your message forms. And it's got to, from, dates, position, to, from, to, time, what the message it is, when it was delivered, and a reply, and time and date, and who sent it back. And you can use messengers, but I'd rather use ham radio. So it's a lot easier. Here's a equipment form. In logistics, they would use this to keep track of pieces. I would use a spreadsheet, I think. I have spreadsheets set up, but with this information, and I can do more with it. And when you do logistic training, which is a separate training course, they have other forms for you to use. But this is just an example until you can get that logistics up and running. And the logistics would probably run after, very well oiled, after the incident had been around for 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours. These pieces of paper, forms, as you would use them, you would pass them off to the next shift. I would guess you would work 4 to 8, probably 8 hours, and maybe have a shift change at 8 hours, and they work 8 hours, and then you have another shift change and work another 8 hours. That gets your 24 hours. This isn't a major event. Normally, we would be doing parades and fairs and booths and such as that, and drills. But when you really get hard to push, you've got to do everything that you're replacing a professional doing. You're not a professional, you don't have as extensive of forms. I read the forms that are extensive they do. You don't want to know it. These are great forms. Summary. When you first start out, let's say we had an earthquake and a tornado hit once, right at the same, or real close to each other. First thing you do is you look at your house, you look at your family. Are they good to go? Everything intact. Then you go to your designated meeting place. From there, you would see if you're the first there. If you're first there, you become the team leader. You're working under the Good Samaritan laws. And I think it was 1970, in 1997, there was another law federally passed. If you got hurt at that point, everything is under the Good Samaritan laws. You can't get sued if you don't go beyond your training. Prior to that, or after that, you meet up at your place, and hopefully you have your ham operator of your neighborhood. He will get in contact with the city if the communication's down. If not, you text the EOC and try to get permission from them. When you do get permission from the city, you're under workman's compensation then. And they know you're alive. But that first form that I showed, or the second form I showed you that was mine that I gave you from Salt Lake, that is a great tool. It pushes you right away to do your sizing up of your area. Okay, there's your forms, guys. I was a little too far ahead. So in your book, they do give you the form. Does anybody have any question? Anybody there?
I think we're doing good. Thanks, Bill.
Okay,
Yep.
it's about 5 minutes to 8. Let's take 5 or 10 minutes and see if we need to go to the restroom and get a drink of water, and then we'll finish up unit 3 after that. Needed somebody to use a tourniquet on me to show you how to do it, or I would use him. And since he's retired UFA, what was your official title?
Firefighter, paramedic. Yeah.
Firefighter, paramedic. He might have some
31
insights.
years. So.
Some insights on some of these different features of first aid that may be helpful to you. And he probably has some better stories than I do. I only have Boy Scouts stuff of helicoptering boys out when they get injured and rescuers being sent to them. But anyway, we can go through a few of these view foils with you, and we'll just talk about the view foils. And I will share the screen with everybody. Let me do that. Share screen and PowerPoint. And there we are. Can everybody hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey, Tom's here. Are you here?
Yeah.
How about Jeff? Did you leave us?
Jeff's
No,
here.
I'm with you.
You're still here? How about James?
I'm here.
How about Norm's here? How about Nate?
I'm here.
Shane?
Shane is not here.
Okay, you want to talk about those for a bit, Norm?
Okay, just by way of introduction, I was with Salt Lake City Fire Department, 31 years, worked right downtown, so we were busy all day, every day. I was there, so we got a lot of work. But I would still be doing the job, it's just a young man's job. So otherwise, I liked it to the point I'd still be doing it, but my body said otherwise. But just in reviewing and some of the things, what it wants us to talk about, I guess, is life-threatening conditions resulting from trauma. Well, there are numerous things that can result in from trauma, including, of course, auto accidents, industrial work accidents, household accidents even. And I think we'd all be able to recognize life or conditions that are traumatic conditions that require intervention from somebody else with a little bit better knowledge. So just keep in mind, you know all about 911. I don't have to tell you that. But the purpose of our course, though, is for us to, if the 911 people are not available. And so that's what we're going to be introducing a little bit more today, including severe bleeding. Should we do it now?
Just, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How many times did you have CERT people come up to you and say, can I help?
Oh, right. Once in a while. No, we were,
You took care of everything.
yeah, we did
You
everything.
never did have the Angel Moroni fall down on anybody then,
No, but we
like we did last year.
had people always wanting to help, especially car accidents. And it's just a matter of, you never say no, but you just, sometimes you will have somebody on the scene that has considerably more knowledge. I've been working scenes and the doctor will come up and say, can I help? Well, yeah, we're doing CPR here. Do you want to? We were doing okay without him, but it's always nice to include people with a little more.
Let me introduce something here. There's a course for CERT that's separate from this on traffic control. Would you like somebody come up to you and say, I'm so-and-so, and I have taken the CERT traffic course. Can I be of help to you? What would you say to that individual?
Probably, for right now, we'll stand over there and I'll
Okay.
advise you to come over here when I need.
So what I'm trying to just bring up here is most of the time, the firemen, the police officers can handle everything, and we're there as bystanders.
Yeah, the bystanders are important, but they're just an added resource if we absolutely had to have.
All right, yeah, bring Joey in here.
So, do we want to do the,
It's fine, just keep going.
oh,
You doing?
no, not all.
Go ahead, which one are you missing?
Okay, what we're talking about, we did the severe bleeding.
You want to go do it now?
Well, may as well, while we're talking about severe bleeding, let's talk about the tourniquet.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Let's show you what I have. I have a kit here. This will take care of everything from a gunshot wound to stop any kind of bleeding. I've got special things in there. This is a tourniquet. And it's only going to get a mention. But Norm, Here's my arm. I've got a cut here, about this long. Can everybody see that on the camera? Tom, can you see that? Well, I'm pointing about 4 inches long from here to here. It's an artery that's spurting.
Okay.
Show me how to put it on.
Okay, you probably want to go up to here, because there's an brachial artery right through there, that you want, it's an easy stop for a tourniquet. Okay, go up a little higher, and then hold it in the temps.
See that you have it staged in the loop.
So it's ready to go.
And you pull it tight, by the way. He's not going to do that to me.
Now,
They say that if you get shot and you put one of these things on, I've never been shot, that the tourniquet hurts worse than the bullet. Just go ahead and wrap.
yeah, so
You pull it tight.
you pull it tight, and on this particular one, you mark the time down on it so that you start it.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah. There should be Velcro on it. This one has Velcro on it. These are called cat tourniquets, by the way. Can you show them how to twist it?
Oh.
You
Okay.
twist that part there.
And to tighten it down even further, it's just a
And
matter of twisting it.
it hurts. No more. Oh, it's killing me.
My butt's going.
Yeah. Anyway, show where the time thing is. You should have something to write with always with you. And you,
Here's the time finger right on the,
so you pull this through there after you, and then you turn that as far as you can at the little whiplash thing here, windlass, and then when you're done, you place it over there and you write your time on it.
now here's the deal, guys. You guys probably don't even have one of these in your first aid kit. This is a great tourniquet. Your chances of probably, you guys probably may or may not have one in your, so I think you need to think in terms of, and the course is designed to teach you to use the stuff you have available. So you might just be able to use, well, yeah, bungee cord, or you could even take a sheet and tear it up. Get it, so you can make a couple wraps around, knot it, and then just tighten it up. Okay, it's just important to stop the bleeding. Okay, especially with what we're doing, because there won't be any, might not be anybody to help with somebody that's injured. So that's what we're here for. So what we're going to do, bleeding is very important, especially with somebody with a tourniquet. You still have to take them to the hospital. Okay, they aren't something you can treat on scene. Okay, you might initially treat them, but you've got to think in terms of long, because they don't have long if you don't have something going to help save their life. Okay.
Now Norm and I know each other, but Norm, what if I'm just laying here on this counter and you don't know me? What would you say to me?
Are you okay?
Who?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah. Okay, I'm Norm. I'm the paramedic that's been asked to take care of you. So what's your name?
I don't know.
Hey, what's going on here, Bill?
I don't know. I just all of a sudden woke up and I don't know. I don't feel good.
Has this ever happened to you before?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, are you taking any medicine?
No, I feel pretty good, I think.
Okay, let me check your pulse.
Okay.
So I'm going to check the pulse, make sure it's good and regular, because I haven't ruled out a heart attack.
What? I'm healthy.
But the point is you need to establish some rapport with the patient. Okay.
What if I was unconscious? What would you do?
And then all bets are off. I just do what I think is appropriate.
You would go to your training and do what's appropriate. yeah.
Good Samaritan law. Will protect you.
Yes. And so basically, you go there, if I'm awake, you tell me who you are and what organization you're from and what's my name. And vice versa, get a conversation going.
But if you're, if he's not, then I'm going to assume there's maybe a stroke, maybe a drug overdose, intentional or unintentional, doesn't matter. But the thing to do is we just keep going. We have some priority steps to go through. Check the pulse, put heart monitor on, and put them on oxygen.
That's, hey, we don't have that equipment here in my
I
house.
know, you're asking that. But
He's too good of a paramedic here. Okay, what about me being from a foreign country and I don't speak the English very good?
well, we're supposed to be respectful of other people's upbringing, bring them, be respectful to somebody who doesn't speak English.
What if I was really a drug addict? Would you go tell somebody else that I was a drug addict?
No. No,
Okay.
been there, done that.
Did that, you never do that, okay. Here's some indicators. What do you think about those? Can you tell us about them?
Okay, and life-threatening bleeding, spurting and bleeding, so that's an indication of an arterial bleed, with spurting. Steady bleeding may or may not be an artery, could even be just a venous cut. Blood is pooling, that means you've got a lot of blood on the outside, and that's a sign you need to, that's a hurry call. Blood is soaking through overlying clothing, you need to find out where the blood's coming from, and then try and compact it with whatever you have. The bandage will do wonders just to hold. You just got to do something to see if you can stop the bleeding.
So you're saying pressure on the bandage.
Yes.
And another indication is something's amputated then too.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about what those mean to you.
Okay. Okay. Blood loss. See, I start here.
I don't know. Let's just say you're in column 2 on blood loss and line 1. How's that?
Okay. We, with severe bleeding, we'll always start with a pulse. Why is that? Because of the very reason. Beats per minute under 100 in a tense situation or would be is normal. Okay. But if your pulse is over 100, and then you need to be concerned about the loss of blood. And breathing, it goes right along with blood loss. So, yeah, your blood pressure can be normal with that, and with the beats per minute, with your heartbeat, your blood pressure can still be normal, but it's a sign that you need to keep your eye on, because that's the first sign that things are going bad on you, when your blood pressure starts to fall and your pulse increases, because your heart is always going to pump enough blood to keep your continence as best you can.
So you're saying you can take the blood pressure there, or your pulses per minute, or you could see how fast they're breathing.
Yeah.
So this would be normal, the first line. The second line would be starting to get concerned.
Yeah.
So those would be, those first 2 categories, you could say is walking wounded, would you say?
Yeah.
And then about the third line, would you say that's concern, but it can wait? And that last line is first person to get to the ambulance and get to the hospital.
Yeah.
Is that what they're trying to tell
That's
us?
what you're trying to tell. Yeah. Especially number 3, I mean. Yeah. Blood pulse over 120.
Okay,
Just keep fast pulse in mind. 100 is a good definition. Under 100, normal. Over 100, keep your eye on it.
so you're saying 120 and 140 is what you're looking for. Then
Yeah.
you're looking how fast they're breathing are the 2 key points.
Correct.
So this is the most critical, and this is can wait a little bit, and those are walking wounded, so to speak.
Yeah,
Okay.
not to be ignored.
We'll show my slide there of what the different bleeding is, but can you give us a kind of an overview there? Have you seen those done?
Oh, yeah.
Very frequently.
Yeah, all the time. It's this.
This would be good for around home also, would it not?
Yeah, yeah. Types of bleeding, arterial bleeding. We kind of discussed that. Pumping, pulsing. But if you know anything about blood, bright red is arterial.
Does that help you describe them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, they just didn't put them together on the slides.
Okay, and venous blood is a little more oozing. Don't, you can,
Down here at the bottom.
yeah. Down at the bottom.
Artillery, that little pump coming out,
Yep. Oh,
and venous is here.
and it's not to be ignored, but it's usually not, it is not as critical as arterial bleeding.
This would be able to be, these two would be able to be stopped with
Direct-
pressure easier
direct
than this.
pressure.
This is hard to do with pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
The arterial pressure is a lot higher than the venous pressure.
Okay. So the third one there, what we're looking at, did you call that an abrasion maybe?
Yeah, abrasion or minor cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just go on to the next one here. What do we do when bleeding? Those are the 4 steps. Tell me about them.
Well, let's see, we find the sources of bleeding.
There's a hand.
Okay, and probably, well, that's, let's say, you normally cut back of the hand. I cover it with a good clean bandage. And hopefully I had, yeah, these kinds. Let's see. Yeah, you can see them in the time. But anyway, 4x4s is what we call them.
That's roller bandage.
Roller bandage is really good.
They come in 2s and 4s and
But
6s.
you can see Dodge sponge bandages are always good for,
Would you fold those up or would you,
depending on the size of the cut.
okay, if you had all 4x4s, those are what you probably would keep in your kit more than 2s or 6s, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you could fold them up, put them on the wound.
yes.
Okay,
And then you'd want to bandage it in place.
okay, you get, next thing is apply pressure.
Yeah, apply the pressure, make sure it's on tight, and then
We're doing that. Camera over there.
okay,
There it is. There's an arm.
okay,
You can fold it if you need to.
okay. Well, let's cut it like, just do it like that. And put some Coban, that's just kind of if I remember right. And it just goes around and it'll self-tighten. This is very good stuff.
Okay. That's in the best. I could put pressure down, couldn't I?
Yeah. Direct
And you
pressure.
could hold it, I could hold the pressure on there while you get the bandage ready, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Direct pressure works really
Yep.
well.
For the ones that are abrasive, the big band-aids are handy nowadays. And cleaning off with alcohol sometimes is helpful. Go on, let's go to the next one. Maybe we'll see something else. We stop the bleeding, put pressure on it, bandage it. There's our tourniquet. Put it on the limb about 2 inches from a joint. Pull the strap through the buckle. Twist the rod until the bleeding stops. Secure it in that little anchor. Put the tape over it and write the time on it. And leave it in place until the EMS gets there, it says. Oh, I have a shocking personality. Did I stick my finger in the socket? Tell me about shock.
Okay, shock is with paramedic there, it's pretty easy to spot, but you go usually by the pulse and blood pressure. Okay, and
Can you push my finger and show them how easy it is to get that capillary refill?
okay, I don't know if you can see it or not, but to get this is capillaries on the end because they're smaller and they bleach out really easy. By bleaching, you're just pushing the blood from one part of the finger to the other. But it shows very well how you can control the bleeding with just a little direct pressure.
So if it doesn't come back to natural color in 2 seconds, I'm in shock probably.
Maybe.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but a good chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So for basic first aid and that, blanching is a really good, it's delayed. And sometimes you can even do it on a finger.
About a palm.
Little effort because but you can do it. And just by pushing, usually a little warmer, put your hand as you want. But you can still bleach it out.
Okay. That's an interesting terminology that hasn't been used for a while around me. Bleaching, making it turn white. And that's a good way to do your bleaching or seeing how the capillary feels. Okay. What are some of the other, can we miss any of this? Is it hard for somebody like me versus you?
Yes, very easy.
Okay.
It's a sign that can be easily overlooked because somebody in shock, there's a lot of different signs, mental capacity diminishes with shock and they might not be thinking straight. And
How about giving me a command or squeezing a hand? I've been taught that. Does that work good
well, it works.
for the mental part of it?
Yeah, some people, yeah.
Some people you can tell it that way. Okay.
And always what's your name, what day of the week is it. Those things kind of go when you get foggy headed. And foggy headed is a sign of shock.
How about body temperature? Do we do anything with that?
Yeah, we want to keep homeostasis, which is just normal. Not 98.6, I think is normal. So you want to try and keep it as close to that as we can. That's why we have people borrow coats and blankets, jackets, or whatever. Anything that we come across can be used to keep, help keep the body warm. Even cardboard will help if we don't have any clothing available.
And what if I get wet? Does that change? If I fell into an icy stream, I had a Boy Scout do that. We were hiking across the log, across a little bit of body of water. He fell in. And it was about 40 degrees.
Yeah, it's very cold. So you need somebody who's, and it's just not falling in a river, but it's being outside cold. You need to give them some dry layers. They've been out as a kid. I just remember we pushed ourselves to the limit. So kids have a tendency to get really cold really easy and not really recognize it.
Okay. So get dry,
Yep.
Place them between the patient and the ground, and wrap them in some layers. It says coat, blanket, Mylar, emergency blanket. If you have a wool blanket, that's the best, because even if it's wet, it will keep the heat in. And wind, keep them out of the wind.
Really bad.
Okay, we're not gonna do exercise 3. I can't see that you guys can get together like Norman and I.
Do you have any questions on what we've done? May or may not.
I had a situation once where at a car accident scene, and the guy he was actually in pretty good shape, except that his leg was pinned in the car, and they had to come and pry the door open and then they rushed him off to the hospital. But then I discovered his toe, his big toe was still laying on the floorboard of the car. So what would you do with that situation?
Well, probably wrap the toe up, and if you can get this, no, you'd be surprised how well it can do if you can keep the toe in good shape. Actually, keep it cool, not hot, and
don't put it on ice.
yeah, no ice, just cool, and rush it to the ER, and they can get the specialists in there that do the hands, and those hand doctors are amazing. You ever see them work? And,
I just called a tow truck.
we saw that coming.
No, we didn't. Okay, Tom,
That's a good one.
you're gonna be humorous on us, Tom. I'm gonna go back to share the screen. That was a good joke, Tom. We've got about a half hour left. Let's go over here to share again. Yeah, I'm learning how to use this. Okay, we're not going to practice it being patients on each other, but we will do this in September maybe. And maybe as we meet each other on the street, we can do it. How about a little bit on the airway?
What you want? Should I talk about the airway?
Yeah,
Okay, of course, you guys all know the airway is very, very important. And they, in first aid, they'll always teach you how to keep the airway open. And by tilting the head back and just making sure that they can breathe on their own as much as possible. If they can't breathe on their own, then they have a major problem.
okay, let's move to the next one and show them one of the things that when they're on the back, what happens.
And when you're on your back, your tongue falls to the back of your throat and actually becomes an obstacle for the airway to let air pass. So by tilting it, you pull that tongue out of the back of the throat and open up that airway. So
That's good. Here's another thing they made a comment on. You'll see this in the manual. Like I'm sitting here, if you move your hands, Tom. If I'm sitting here, I can bend over and put my hands on my knees. That helps you if you need to breathe. And then if I'm standing up, I can hunch over my shoulders and put my hands on my knees. That's like when you're running and you stop and you ran 100 yards at top speed. You run out of air when you get to that 100-yard mark. You kind of slow down and then bend over and do some deep breathing to help yourself. So basically, the airway is important, isn't it?
very, very important.
And there's a flow chart if that can help us understand.
Okay, is the patient injured, person breathing? Yes, he's breathing. So you just put the patient in a comfortable position and let him lie. But if he's not, you open up the airway, and then flow chart here says, do you know CPR? So there's actually a stuff that's not included there that probably should be. Do you know CPR? Well, need to open the airway first. That way, hopefully they'll breathe on their own. And if you know CPR, you can instruct. I mean, you can do it yourself, or you can get somebody to help you, hopefully.
I was CPR trained. I think I could last 2 to 5 minutes doing the chest compressions.
Yeah,
It's a high time, a high manpower position. And if we're in the normal, we can give them 5 minutes more or 10 minutes more if we have enough bodies to do the compressions, etc. But in a major, would we be able to do that for 30 minutes and maybe 4 hours before we could get you transported?
we may not be able to even start it.
You might not want to start it. So you might want to go to the positions, what I think they're trying to do here. They tell you in the text, you can do this CPR. We're not required to do it in CERT because our professionals will not be here in 15 minutes or 5 minutes. We got a great response time here. Unified Fire, I see vehicles going all the time. They're either coming from Saratoga Springs or going to Saratoga Springs from our place. And they do mutual back and forth if they have an overload of something. And 10, 15 minutes, you're in the vehicle on the way to the hospital. But when we would be involved, it would probably be put them in a position to breathe. If they don't breathe, do a couple of head tilts. If they don't breathe, you put them in a position so they can breathe. If they will start breathing, and go on to the next person. Or if we get stopped by a bus, for example, if we come in on a bus and we're the only ones that know CPR, you've got 30 people in that bus to figure out. You get the ones that can walk out to your voice. You've got to go around and check the other people to see who needs emergencies. And if you come to somebody that's not breathing, you put very little time on and move on to the next person. The bus may be burning in a few minutes. You don't know. So this is a good chart, basically. And the key is if you know CPR and you have enough people that can do the compressions for a period of time while you take care of the other people, you may say no and then put them into position. So basically, we're getting them to a position generally, unless we have the resources to do CPR.
Yeah,
I've been trained on CPR for about 40 or 50 years.
yeah, me too.
Okay,
So,
here's what you do, guys. You
yeah,
lay them on your side. So I'm on my side. If you can imagine me being on my side, I'm going to be I don't want to move my camera on my computer. I get back far enough. So if I'm on my side, what do you do with my arms?
put them on the,
What do I do with the one that's on top? This is the top. What do I do with that?
that's the one on top.
Yeah, you're going to roll me on my side. That's the top. This is my top leg, the left leg. What are you going to do with my left leg first?
So, you want to be on your side, you're gonna. put
Okay, so
your
this leg,
leg over here,
got my leg over here, over my right leg. What do I do with my right arm?
same thing, I put it over. in
What do I
the-
do with my right arm? Put it up
Your-
above my head.
There you go.
Then you put this arm over and you get behind them and roll them. And you're at your shoulder and somewhere in the leg area, roll them over. And where this hand could come down and my mouth and chin will be facing down. And we'll show you how to do that better. That's a Bill's ad-libbing. He's not very good. He's not very limber. So the key is you lay them on the side, you reach outward, the bottom arm outward, top arm, rest, bring it over, rest on the bicep. When you twist them over, turn them over, the head rests on this hand, the left hand. You bend the leg over slightly and raise the chin and point the mouth downward. So you're kind of, there's probably a picture better somewhere else. Let's go on. We'll show, this is one of those things you have to do it yourself. Here's another one you have to do. It's called, you deal with the patient's head, put one hand on each side of the jaw. You want to try me out? Norm, go ahead, show them how to do it if you want.
Well, here's.
Well, maybe this is, okay, can you show it from behind? The camera's over there.
Grabbing a hold of the jaw. Pulling it out. Jaw.
Yeah.
Pulling the bones.
Okay, you feel the bones, I feel it.
Just pulling it up.
I'm on my back, right?
You're on your back.
I'm
He's
on
on
my-
his back.
I'm on my back.
Hopefully keep that open as well.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I could breathe better. We're not going to do that. You just got a little glimpse, guys.
Yeah.
Norman, Bill, we're having a wonderful adventure here. Providing comfort. Keep them warm. Hold a hand. Eye contact. Be patient and understanding. Speak with a soft voice, not a loud one. And if you have to move on to provide aid to another person, let them know that you're going to be nearby, but you're going to go check somebody else out. And you can always look back at them and say, how you doing or something, if you're close enough. So burns. So we're going to go through 3 points here. Prevent hypothermia, manage pains, and reduce risk of infection. Ooh, they got a good picture there. You see that before, Norm?
Not that one. Pretty good.
Okay. Factors of burns: temperature of burning agent, period of time the survivor exposed to it, area affected, size of area burned, and the depth. And here goes the layers. So a superficial burn is just through the first layer. I think that's the example there. It's there, but I can't read it. It's fuzzy. And then partial thickness, it goes down a little further, is the second picture is there. And then a third degree is all the way through the layers of skin. And here's what we do for burns. We remove cause of burns and affected area of clothing and jewelry. Take those off if you can, or as you to get the area from continually being burned. If its irritation is dry, you can gently brush it away as much as possible. But here's the key, guys. Listen to this. Always brush away from eyes of the survivor and yourself. You notice you're still keeping yourself safety there. Flush with a lot of cool running water. Apply a cool wet compress to relieve pain. Cover wound loosely, and dry, sterile, or clean dressing. Wound care. That one, Mark? My voice is good.
The wound care, want us to talk about control of bleeding first. Actually, with bleeding, got to so they can move on to step 2, which is applying dressing and bandages that's actually appropriate for the particular burn. Sometimes ones I remember the most are burns with treating with heavy doses of water, bandages and stuff like that. By dressing directly to the wound, by making sure you wash it off before, as much as you can, anyway. And then soaking the bandage with a lot of, and then just hold it in place, and you're going to be holding that for a while until maybe either the patient can do it, or a family member can hold it in place. And you can move on to somebody else.
Hey, Norm, I'm having a hard time hearing you. If you could speak a little bit closer to the microphone.
Okay. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. I'm new at this too. Okay, so I'll just review that to make sure you put on a bandage that's appropriate. Well, I'm going back. Let's go. For our treatment, what you're going to be doing, you're going to be putting on a Band-Aid or a covering that will do the job of keeping it clean and moist. Okay, but once you get that to the hospital, they're gonna take it off, put something maybe a little more appropriate, and then we need to be able to have somebody hold that in place. While sometimes the patient can hold it in place, but other times a family member or somebody, a volunteer, can help hold it in place. I hope that helps with burns anyway.
What happens, Norm, if this first gauze doesn't work?
Go to the second.
The second one? What if it doesn't work, the third was tube,
Okay,
and your pressure on it each time?
well, we got a problem, so I would use a tourniquet right on the lower part.
But be sure you don't place it on the neck.
Yeah, not on the neck.
Okay. So we want to get it to not bleed or slow the bleeding down as much as possible.
Yeah,
Signs of infection. I've not always had the most sterile bandage with me. I would stop the bleeding with anything I could to stop it and worry about how long do we have for infection to get in there.
it's right away.
It starts right away, but you have something that can be given within a day
Yeah,
that would take care of the infection if you could not get a perfectly sterile dressing,
Yeah,
such as a bed sheet,
yeah,
a clean bed sheet, or a shirt or sock or something like that.
yeah. I'm sure we can figure out something at your house.
So when it gets infection, it'll swell, it'll get discolored, and it gets that oozy pus out of it.
Yes,
And the red will be seen like you're seeing here on those pictures. Let's go to the next one. We're going to run out of time. We've got 10 or 20 minutes. Okay, here's somebody, Tom, this is your question. I believe you said, what do you do with that part that was left over, was amputated from a body that you saw at a car wreck? It says here, save tissue part, wrap in a clean material and place in a plastic bag. Keep tissue parts cool, but not directly on ice. And keep severed part with the survivor if possible. Like you saw the part later, if you didn't catch the ambulance when he got away, you need to get it to the hospital.
yeah, you need to.
But basically that part goes with a person to the hospital, or is kept with them waiting for the ambulance to arrive in a worst case situation.
And there is a time element to that that's very important. And right around an hour.
Okay. Impale things. I want to show you something, guys. I've got an example of something that's been impaled. Have you ever seen tornadoes putting straw into pieces of telephone poles?
Yeah.
They can. So I've got a item of keeping the impaled part away from the body. I've taken a cup, put a hole in the end, taken a scissors and made little serrations around it so it will flex. If this is in my arm, I could take this plastic cup and I could push it down far enough and I could then take the cup and it would keep the piece from moving around. I had an uncle that had he was driving a little sports car and he ran head on into a 53 Cadillac. This is some years ago. He was in a little MG Sprite, I believe, and the steering wheel went in his chest. And they cut the steering wheel shaft off, got it out of there somehow. They had to hold it in place, get him to the hospital. He survived, which is amazing to me, but he had this about a 1 or 2 inch shaft in his chest, and he survived. They had a method of keeping that in place. And when the shaft went in, it didn't bleed much because the shaft was pushing against the tissue and it kept it from bleeding. So if it's bleeding, you keep the bleeding down. And if you keep the shaft immobilized, this would work on an eye. Use a paper cup. Oops. Paper cups are easier to cut bigger holes. If you put this on your eye, if something went in your eye like a shaft, this would help hold it, and it would contour to the face a little better. Paper works the best. I would cut that hole a little bit bigger, and I would cover both up. I would have a container that is dark, so I can't see out of this eye, and I cover the eye that's good, because you don't want to get this eyes going back and forth in pairs.
Yeah.
So if you have something like that in the eye, you do that way. Just something to share with you that's not known. You do things that are improvised sometimes, because if you're in a tornado, you don't have all your supplies with you. So you just stabilize the impalement. Fractures the joints. You immobilize the joint above and below the injury. And if uncertain type of injury, treat it as a fracture. So if you've got a limb, I'll just go through these real quick here, Norm. An open fracture, you can see how it's broken there. And the ends may not, they may be just set apart differently. And this one comes out. Now this one's it's a closed fracture. They may be offset a little bit, but there is a fracture there, but it's not out through the tissue. You can see coming out through the tissue. This one here is what they call a dislocated. It's broken and moved. This one's non-displaced fracture. They're just different pictures there to look at. Here's the things we don't do with those. Do not draw exposed bone back into the tissue. You keep that exposed in where it's at. You do not irrigate the wound. You cover the wound with sterile dressing, splint the fracture without disturbing wound, place moist dressing over bone. That's to keep it from drying out. Dislocation of joints and ligaments happen. It is, if it's so severe that it permits separation of bones from its normal position in a joint, treatment, immobilize, do not relocate, check pulse, movement, and sensation before and after sprinting and mobilization. And this is pulse, movement, and sensation. They call that PMS. Okay. Sprained ankles. I had tons of them playing basketball. One time I was on a tennis team, and I went 2 nights to play basketball. I played on Tuesday and Thursday night, just a pickup game at the gym at school. And I bruised on the Tuesday one of my ankles. I sprained it. Then on Thursday I did it again. And Friday I showed up for going away for a tournament. My coach saw me with 2 ace bandages on my foot, and he said, "Lindsay, what happened?" I said, I sprained this one on Tuesday and I sprained this one on Thursday. He says, out of this bus. So they do hurt, they do bruise, and they do have you lose use of the ankle, and you can see that. Here's another thing. If you've got a broken bone, improvise. Take a blanket, roll it up. Let's see what I got over here. This is a manufactured splint. It's out of a foam. It's a stiff foam, as you can see. And that you can put around a leg, an arm. You can bend it and then tape it in place. Substitute. They're showing pasteboard boxes. They're showing blankets rolled up. That's all your Boy Scout stuff. Here at home, you can take a magazine. If you still take magazines, you take cardboard. Here's just a piece of good old shipping boxes. Break them down, fold them in place. You can make splints. And you can even bend them in spots. And then there's so many things that you can do. Here you can put it on a foot. You can put it on an elbow. There's a lot of ways you can do it. Those are just some of the ways. Remember, as a CERT person, You're not going to have all this equipment. You're going to have to improvise. Coal-related injuries. When the temperature body drops below normal, what's that temperature, Norm?
Well, the normal 98.6.
98.6.
Okay.
I'm 98.4. My normal is 98.4, okay? Now, in extreme cold, occurs when extreme cold shuts down the blood flow to extremities, causing tissue death. So you don't want to bring it back to normal temperature quickly, because that causes damage. You let it slowly regain its blood flow. I heard somebody that does a lot of mountain rescues. They say that when people are out in the snow for a long time, if you warm up that extremity too fast, it can push some of the cold blood through your heart, and it doesn't help your heart any. So
Yeah.
that's the reason why you don't warm it up quickly. It also is that your heart can be affected. Redness or bluish skin. Oh, I've seen so many Boy Scouts, I tell them to put their hats on, put their earmuffs on. And do they listen to me? No, I have to watch. I go around looking for redness and blueness. Look at the nose, look at the ears, look at the fingers. And if they're shaking, if they're slurring their speech, their unpredictable behavior. Of course, that's a normal Boy Scout, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're listless. Okay, hypothermia, we talked about earlier. Remove wet clothing, put something under the patient to keep them warm, like a paper or a ground pad. If you're out hiking, you're in the house, you can put them on somewhere that's carpeting, or you can put them on a bed, something that keeps them between a cold sink and their body. Keep them sheltered and covered. You can throw a blanket over them, keep them out of the wind. Even those Mylar blankets help. Don't massage the areas, because you can push too hard and push the wrong way, and you can cause other damage. Place in the recovery position if they're unconscious. We'll show you how to do that better later. Here's some frostbite. Ooh, those look good, Norm, don't they?
No.
Skin discoloration, I see that, the burning and tingling sensation. And it could be numb. Hey, maybe they're old and have neuropathy too.
Yeah.
That's a little joke. Right, Tom? Okay. Frostbite treatment. Immerse injured area in warm water, not hot water. Tap, it's just barely warm. And you slowly bring it up to room temperature. Do not allow part to refreeze. Do not attempt to use massage, and wrap the affected body parts in dry, sterile dressing. Okay. How many of you ever had a heat cramp? Did you see much of that?
Give up.
Did you see very many heat cramps when you're in
No,
professional?
enough to know. We've all experienced it probably.
Okay.
But,
So the
Yeah.
muscle spasms basically, and from overexertion and extreme heat. Opposite of that is heat exhaustion and curlers when exercising or working in extreme heat, and loss of body fluids. Heat stroke is the survivor's temperature control system shuts down, body temperature rises so high that brain damage and death may result. Maybe that's why one of my daughters was kind of weird. Anyway, she went out of high temperature once. Anyway, here we go. Symptoms of heat exhaustion: cool, moist, pale, or flushed skin, heavy sweating, headache, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and exhaustion. Just kind of go through that list in your mind, or open up your manual when you see somebody that looks like they're exhibiting one of these heat-related things. Hot skin, hot red skin, lack of perspiration, changes in consciousness, rapid weak pulse, rapid shallow breathing. Those are heat strokes. I'm going over a little faster in your books. Be sure to review these books, because we're going to show you more of them come September and how to handle them a little better. Remove from heat to cool environment. Cool body slowly. Don't go throw them in a deep freeze. Room temperature, and slowly have a fan on them to get it a little cooler, or an air conditioning might work. Exhausted patient might need to drink water slowly, sips. is what you want, sips of water. Don't feed them. It's not a party. Do not provide food or drink to the patient if he or she is experiencing vomiting. This is not a binge party. If they're cramping or losing consciousness, you only give them water slowly if they're conscious and not having other problems. They're not vomiting or cramping or losing consciousness. My mouth's dry, guys. If bite or sting is suspected and situation is non-emergency, remove the stinger. And I have a daughter she gets a sting of any sort, and she's got a pin that she uses to take care of it. If they don't have that problem, you could scrape the credit card or a stiff card along and remove the stinger. You wash it thoroughly with soap and water. You may place ice on the site for about 10 minutes and then take it off for 10. And then you may put it back on 10 and then take it off for 10. But 1 or 2 10 minutes stays is all you need for the ice. Here's the EpiPen. These are nice to have in your kit in case somebody in your family is allergic to bee stings or something of that nature. It relieves the pain and it takes care of the allergy. EpiPens. Most people carry them that are in that condition. As a CERT volunteer, you can take control of bleeding using direct pressure or tourniquet. This is summary. Maintain normal body temperature, open airways, and position the patient in a corrective position, a recovery position. Other injuries we know about, we've talked about burns, wounds. You know what to do with something's amputated or impaled in the body. You keep the amputated part with the person, wrap it up, put it in a plastic bag, keep it with the person that lost it. If it's impaled, you can use bandages, you can stack things around it to keep it straight, such as a paper cup, the best. You can get even a milk carton if it's that long, or a 2-liter soda pop bottle, and do the same thing I did. Plastic is hard to cut in some of the things. That little plastic cup was very hard to cut, and I would tend to cut it too long of serrations. Fractures, dislocations, sprains, you know how to do those. Cool related injuries, heat related injuries, and insect bites and stings is what we talked about. Be sure to read the next unit, which is 3, part 2. We did 1 and 2, part 3, part 2 now. That's more medical, and then we'll do whatever 5 is also. We will not have to wear our PPE, that is personal protection equipment, until September. This part will be postponed until September. I'm sorry, I can't just pull it out and do it right now. We're at the end of our time. So next is unit 4, excuse me, part 2. And it's next week starting off. And we'll do a little bit of a test. And we'll go through and do this review with a test. Any questions, any thoughts from any of the online people? I'm going to unshare, stop the share. Any questions? You can turn on your mics if you wish. Tom, you got a question? You got a look on your face.
Yeah. On the burn, it said to put a wet cloth or something like that on the burn, and then it said put a dry bandage, and it's like you can't do both of those because one would offset the other. So I'm not sure what that meant.
If you're not going to hold something here that's wet, you can use tape to hold it in place. I think that's what they were referring to, if I recall.
Oh.
I'll look that up in the film and I'll address that. I'm going to find my paper here, somewhere under here. Sorry for it, Norm. You buried it on my first aid stuff. I'm just teasing Norm.
I know that.
I couldn't do anything wrong. Okay, Tom. Wet, wet bandage. Tape down. I think that's what I want to, I think that's what I want to look up. I'll get back with you on that, Tom.
All right.
See, go back and save everybody. Anybody else have a question? How about you, James?
No questions.
Okay. Did you, after I got to learning how to operate Zoom, I'm terrible on Zoom, but after I was going, I think I improved enough to help you guys. If you have any questions, email me or call me up and I'll look you up an answer or find the right answer. And if I don't know, I'll ask Tom, and then after Tom, Norm, and then I'll go find somebody else and get you the perfect answer. And I'll try to find you, I'll find you chapter and verse if I can too in your manual. Okay, how about Jeff?
I'm all good. You guys did a great job today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I see we called on James, did we not? Things keep moving up and down. I'm going back to roll call here. Okay. Benjamin, you tuned in late. Did you get enough information?
Oh, yeah. I'm good. Yeah, sorry I was a few minutes late there. I was actually out on a call, so.
We
Right.
have this
Comes with
recorded.
the job.
This will be recorded and Rich has it on, he's put up on the chat area. And that's right in the middle. If you look at I'm right in the middle. It says chat with 4 on it right now. On that little button at the bottom, and he has a place that this will be put up and you can go through and maybe we missed something and you want an answer, still call us. Norm's our expert.